Do you believe in government cover-ups, conspiracy theories? We're here to talk about it. This is Aliens and Stuff. Welcome to Aliens and Stuff. I'm Tom, this is Mike, and this is Spencer. Today we're here to talk about the Philadelphia experiment. So, let's get to it. Spencer, let's have a little rundown of the Philadelphia experiment. Tell us a little bit, shed some light.
Okay, so I'm going to start off brief, right? I'm going to start off brief with this one. We'll go into a bit more detail later on. But the Philadelphia experiment is an alleged military experiment carried out in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in 1943 during World War II. The story focuses around a US Navy destroyer escort, the USS Eldridge. It's funny in a way, I'm just going to add a side fact here, but the word Eldritch, right, spelled differently, but it actually means weird and sinister or ghostly, and it's synonymous with the Eldritch abominations and cosmic horrors of the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. So, interesting fact there for you.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Is it also a place in America?
I don't know, it might be.
So it could have been
Google it.
named after somewhere. So if anyone knows at home, just Google it. Okay, let us know, because we literally haven't checked that out, but it's a very interesting anecdote that's to give. Now with this, guys, just to open it,
Right.
I think I'm undecided on this one, completely.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's normal.
I'm going to be honest. When I was younger, I was definitely paranormal, but I think it's normal. But I may change my mind.
Okay. Continue telling us more, Spencer.
Right, okay, so let's break into it, and first we'll have a little bit of a chat about Morris Jessup. So I don't suppose either of you know much about this at all?
I do,
A little bit of research on
A little bit of research?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1955, astronomer, UFO researcher Morris Jessup. He authored a very successful book called The Case for the UFO. Now he began receiving letters from Carlos Allende, who also identified himself as Carl Allen, who claimed to have witnessed this secret World War II experiment at the naval shipyard.
So what was the experiment? What actually happened?
Yeah.
What did he
What's the
claim?
crux of it? What happened?
So the crux of it is he claimed that the USS Eldridge was rendered invisible, right? That
Right.
it teleported to New York, that it teleported to another dimension where it encountered aliens, that it teleported through time, okay?
It's funny that you laugh. I'm laughing at this.
It's a lot. It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot.
No, let's get serious about it. I struggle this particular subject, and in previous episodes, I know we talked a lot about alien sightings. We've talked a lot about, Pentagon footage that has been released and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All very credible.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with what exists in this world to get my head around it, but I'm keeping an open mind, which is why I've said I'm undecided. Okay. But this sounds ridiculous, which is why we all laughed about it, quite frankly, because
Yeah.
it is ridiculous.
I mean,
the idea of teleportation and visibility is something you see on Star Trek or on kids' TV shows.
The thing is, I always like to have like a modicum of respectability when I'm doing this sort of thing, but the fact that there's so many different claims are made. Let me finish, actually. I haven't finished with the claims.
Crack on.
So apparently this resulted in the deaths of several sailors, some of whom were fused with the ship's hull. It was the story itself really, really horrifying.
Yeah.
But just quite a lot to take in, okay? Now, in 1957, Jessup was contacted by the Office of Naval Research, ONR, in Washington, D.C. Now, they'd received a parcel containing his book, The Case for the UFO, in an envelope, and it was marked Happy Easter. And within the book, there were extensive annotations in the margins, okay, written in 3 different shades of pink ink. And they appeared to detail a correspondence amongst 3 individuals. One who was given the name Jemmy, J-E-M-I, and the other 2 were called by the ONR themselves Mr. A and Mr. B. Now, these references and all these notes and things in the actual book were references to the Philadelphia experiment and certain theories. And based on the handwriting style and subject matter, they concluded that a large part of writing was Carlos Allende's.
Allende, yeah, okay.
So, very, very strange one. Now, what I find weird about this is, for whatever reason, the ONR, they then funded a print run 100 copies of the original book,
It's a bit odd, isn't it?
but with all the different annotations and things
They
like that.
kept the notes in, didn't they? Which was a bit bizarre, I thought.
They did.
Bit of a publicity stunt, perhaps.
Well, perhaps, yeah. It just seemed like a very, very strange one for me. I mean, there's actually a Vero edition. I think we've got a picture of it, which is on there, of the book.
Let's look on the TV. There it is. Well, that's the Eldridge.
That's the Eldridge.
And then there's the next one, which should be the book. There it is.
There it is.
There it is. So you can see that says the Vero edition. So for some unknown reason, the Office of Naval Research decided to basically republish this chap's book, but with a load of strange annotations and things in it, which I do find a bit odd. I mean, you're talking about it's an incredible story. Is there any credibility? I suppose it adds some degree of credibility that they've done that, I guess, or what would you say?
The guy who wrote the book as well, didn't he? He was then basically saying that, you know, he thinks this is all true, and he was going to have a meeting with like high officials and bits, and he was going to release all this information, and then he killed himself in his car by carbon monoxide poisoning.
Unfortunately, lowering the tone, following marital issues and a lack of success with future publishing ventures in 1959, he did kill himself.
Which apparently a lot of,
Yeah.
UFO buffs out there reckon that he was of course offed because he was going to release all this information.
Yeah.
I think as well, we were laughing about this earlier. We shouldn't be, because that's extremely sad. And we certainly weren't laughing at that. I think we got to talk about the motivations, in my opinion, as to why the Navy decided to try and, let's say it was real, that they decided to cloak a ship.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's definitely a reason
or make
to
it
do
invisible.
Yeah.
This was during World War II. The US had just joined the war. The Allies over in Europe were really struggling with resources and with assistance with troops, with boats, with like food even, because they were trying to cut us off, all of this kind of stuff. And the US intervened to help out. And the whole purpose of them sending boats from the US across the UK was sending this stuff over.
Yeah.
But what was happening, and there was something like 72,000 deaths in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
This is Allied deaths.
Yeah.
There's been another 30,000 German deaths of fighting that was going on because the Germans in their U-boats were trying to stop these ships getting supplies across to Europe. Mm-hmm. So what the US wanted to do was essentially make it so they didn't attack them. Okay, now I'll talk about my theories later as to why this whole story or thing could have happened and how people believe it might have happened. But what they used back then was magnetic torpedoes. So anything that was magnetic in the water, these torpedoes would pick up on it, obviously divert towards it. So the theory, and I believe behind what they were trying to do, was not necessarily make it visibly, but invisible to enemy ships.
Magnetic mines.
Magnetic mines. So that's the reason why that this I don't know, story or real life kind of event happened, is because they were testing that. And I know Albert Einstein was involved in not in
the unified field theory was alleged to be involved in making the ship invisible, not in the electromagnetic.
Yes.
Yeah, but look. Okay, so I feel a bit bad now about laughing about it at the beginning. So what I'm going to do, to be fair and honest, I'm going to give you an actual account as to what is supposed to have happened. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because you've looked at this from a military perspective. So the experiment itself was allegedly based on the unified field theory. So that's coined by Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, according to some accounts, researchers thought that some version of this field, using large electrical generators, could bend light around an object via refraction, basically, making it invisible. So sort of like a cameraless stealth technology, that sort of thing. Now, there are no reliable attributable accounts, but in most accounts of a supposed experiment, the Eldridge was fitted with the required equipment at the shipyard.
Yeah.
In 1943, they were supposedly successful in testing it, which resulted in the ship almost becoming invisible, with some witnesses reporting a sort of greenish fog in its place. Crew members complained of nausea afterwards. Also, it was reported that when the ship reappeared, some of the sailors were fused to the hull, embedded in a metal structure, and apparently some went, and this is a direct quote, completely bananas. Okay. None of this is substantiated evidence.
No.
Just gonna throw that out there.
There's a number of times it happened as well, I believe. That one of them ended up in New York, apparently.
One was Vancouver.
And
as
one
well,
was-
wasn't it, I think?
Well, they claim what happened was they recalibrated the equipment, but when the equipment was put into place and the experiment was reenacted, it not only became invisible but also disappeared in a flash of blue light and was teleported to Norfolk, Virginia.
Yes.
That was
further
it.
south. Yeah.
Which is about 200 miles away. And it was claimed by seamen aboard the SS Andrew Furuseth that they saw the ship appear in the shipyard, and it then vanished and reappeared in Philadelphia where it was originally stationed. There were more rumours of crew members being fused to bulkheads, mental disorders, some crew turned inside out or simply vanishing. And
Pretty gory stuff.
once again, it's unsubstantiated, but looking at it from the other argument, they do say that maybe people were brainwashed afterwards to cover it up.
Well, they claim the Navy that, it was alleged by some of the people in the Navy that these people were classed then as lost at sea, which
Yeah, they
happened
were
in
put
World
in
War II.
institutes, weren't they, apparently?
Yeah.
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 So,
It's a good cover-up, isn't it? So they're not there anymore.
Easy
Well-
to do during a war.
well, then the drama really began in 1979, where the author Charles Berlitz published a best-selling book on the Bermuda Triangle, and then another UFOologist, William Moore, teamed up with him, and they published a book called The Philadelphia Experiment Project Invisibility, which purported it to be factual, basically, and then expanded on these stories of bizarre happenings and unified field theories, government cover-ups, etc., etc. And it was later adapted in 1984 to a time travel film called The Philadelphia
We've got a
Experiment,
picture of that title, haven't we?
which we do have
Yeah.
a picture of. Yeah.
Call it
I've not
production,
seen that film, but I've heard it was trash.
It looks trash.
You
If
horrible
I'm
bloke.
honest.
You horrible bloke.
I don't know.
But anyway, the dramatisation. So in 1990, Alfred Bielek, who we've got another picture of, who was a self-proclaimed former crew member of the Eldridge and an alleged participant in the experiment, he supported the version that was portrayed in the film, but he claims, right, that him and his brother, who was another crewman, jumped off the ship at the time of the experiment because they were freaked out.
This where it goes a bit nutty for me.
This goes
And
really...
This goes a bit
strap
grey.
yourselves in, people.
He claimed that they jumped overboard and he awoke in a hospital in 2137
As you do.
with radiation burns. And he claimed that geographical shifts had happened across the globe, that the US infrastructure was completely destroyed as a result of a war in 2005 where the states in Europe fought off the combined threat of China and Russia.
Theory aged well then.
So that meant to have happened 15 years ago. He also claimed to have been involved in the Montauk project. Now, I know you looked into this a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, Project Montauk is like, for me, where it gets a bit more realistic to a certain point. So in New York, there's this place called Cape Hope, which is in Montauk, and there's a massive, great radar dish, right? And chain fence around it, and there's like a bunker. Now, if you've ever watched the series Stranger Things,
Yep.
so Stranger Things is actually based on this alleged activity, right? And if you remember watching Stranger Things,
do.
there is a radar thing, and there's a hidden
there is,
base in like
yeah.
a sleepy town, New York, right?
Yeah.
So basically, what they have meant to have done there is like experiments, mind control, etc. And there's something called the Montauk Boys, where they basically abducted like young lads and put them through it, and effectively almost like torture them like mentally. And basically, yeah, there's like it's an unusual thing because that place now is completely sealed with concrete.
Well, can I ask, did it exist? Did it?
Yeah,
It definitely was a
but
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, so Project Montauk isn't.
'Cause I've
The
never
place
looked
is
into this.
real.
I don't know anything
The
about
place is real.
Right.
Right. And it kind of goes into all the mind control experiments they did.
MK
MK
Ultra.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it ties into the MK Ultra stuff. So it's almost kind of a very similar thing to that. It's meant to intertwine with that. But yeah, there was one lad who claims that he was experimented on. He had flashbacks and this, that, and the other. I interviewed him and where he worked up. He still works up near there, and he wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. And there was a film I watched which was quite in depth about it. But yeah, it's just a bit unusual. But apparently that ran until 1983.
Yeah.
but it was meant to have come from the Philadelphia project.
Well,
so all of that kind of time...
Which is funny, which brings me to the next point, in that the reason I was going on to the Montanak project is because Alfred Bielek claimed to be the psychic director.
Yeah, that was the thing. And he was the one
Montanak,
who was meant to have done all the psych controls a bit.
But anyway, so I'll be honest with you, I'm just going to start listing all the other stuff that he claimed to have happened to him. So he claimed to have gone even further into the future. He claimed that he went to Mars.
Well, of course he did. Brilliant.
To be honest, there's so much, there's
So
so many
fantastical.
claims. It's so fantastic. We could probably do a whole episode just on the wacky adventures of this chap.
It'd make a great film.
It would turn our show into a fiction rather than something that hopefully is informative.
Well,
so we're not going to do that.
Well, I mean, given that there wasn't a giant war in 2005 between the US, Europe, China, and Russia, I think we can either say.
Well, I don't remember it. So.
We can either say that it's not true, or that when he went back in time, he actually successfully stopped it.
Okay. Now the other option is.
Yeah, but he didn't. Oh yeah.
Is it a different dimension he went to?
Oh, who
That's
knows?
thrown something in there now, but no, I don't believe
Well,
that.
look,
I'm going to discount anything that he says.
Let's just go into the reality of it then, okay? Because obviously you've given a historical context.
Well, I want to add to it as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So, I've seen interviews as well with the captain of the ship that was between, I think, 1941. Now I know the ship wasn't commissioned until later than that. But what happened quite often in the US Navy at that time is if you were promoted, you were assigned a ship at the time that it was being built, or if this one existed. That happened a lot.
Right.
Now, this guy was assigned the ship before it was being built, and he was in the dockyard while it was being built, and then through until it was commissioned, until it was then in active service. And then he stayed with the ship for quite a few years, even after the war. Mm-hmm. Now, he has said, as well as somebody else that he worked with on the ship, that I can't remember the rank of the guy, but he was, again, slightly lower than the captain, but higher up than the average seaman. They stayed with the ship. They reported none of this happening. They said, no, it's nonsense. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That, for me, is incredibly credible, because why would they lie about it? They could have said, yeah, there was experiments that happened, but it wasn't like they said it happened.
But can I just add to that, because there was a program where they used to effectively kind of magnetise the boat, which they used to run like wires through and what have you. I'm probably talking this about quite primitively.
Yes,
that's the one.
Yeah.
And every sailor had to make sure that they didn't have watches on, anything with magnets or batteries in.
Correct.
Now, I think it's a case of them having to do all of that, going down to a bar, having a few beverages, having a few drinks, explaining how they can make their ship invisible, i.e. radar, mines, etc. Because they're doing this process. Few too many drinks, things go one way or another, and next thing is, is this whole thing starts off and a ship disappeared and time travelled.
Now,
I think it's almost like it's Chinese whispers.
Do you know why it's funny that you mentioned the guys coming off the ship into a bar? There was an account that I have read of some guys in a bar that weren't in the Navy. It was a Navy-type bar, but they were civilians.
Yeah.
There was talk of, and again, this has not been backed up by anybody except for these two guys, where these...
Nothing is ever
I think I know what you're going to say.
It's pointless.
Story.
These guys, allegedly, who were on the experiment when it
Right.
occurred, went, survived it, but went a little bit mad, came back, had a few drinks with their mates, with the other... They came in, a fight broke out,
Right.
and they were all having a punch up, but allegedly they were fading in and
out of reality.
reality. Now, let's face it, boys, okay? We've had a few drinks in the past, okay? And I've got to be honest, you appear to be fading in and out of reality for me, especially after maybe the few pints.
Yeah,
so
I think...
I'm going to discount that completely, but I think it's worth adding, because that has been told as an anecdote. People have genuinely believed that.
Can I really, really quickly just run you by a couple of different scientific facts?
Please do, and then I'm going to summarise.
Because what
I think we know where we're going here.
the issue here is it's always anecdotal, right? So it's been suggested, right? There was a misunderstanding of routine research at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard because of the degaussing experiments on the mines, right?
Yeah.
And then potentially, they were talking about a bluish hue or greenish hue appearing. The USS Timmerman was fitted with a high-frequency generator which produced corona discharges which appeared as bluish hues.
You can't
So
use
there
the word
might
corona
have
at the
been-
moment, Spencer. It's a very sore subject.
There might have been some sort of mix-up there, right? There's also the case that people say that they saw it in the other port, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, which was miles away, and they say it isn't possible. Well, actually, there was a certain route that it technically could have taken because of all the issues along the Eastern Front with the Germans. There is, where is it here? A shakedown cruise in the Bahamas, apparently.
Right. Can I make a point quickly?
Right.
Can we bring up the picture of the boat on the screen? Right.
Yes.
Is that okay? Right. Is that the USS Eldridge or is that the USS Mickey Mouse? That's a grey naval ship.
Right.
These people in
What's
these
your
ports
point?
are just going, oh, it's a grey boat. It's
Oh,
a bit
I
like the
see.
Eldridge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
the-
one knows that's
Let's
the
just see it
Eldridge
on
or the
yeah,
USS
no, I
Mickey
get what you're
Mouse.
saying. Yeah, misidentification is what you're
That's
saying.
what
yeah?
I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Can
No,
I
I'm with you.
summarise? Because I'm looking now and I'm thinking we've wasted a lot of time on this. I'm going to say, for a number of reasons, I think this is whispers that have gone on and on and on and on, stories of invisibility. People have gone, oh, I've made the ship invisible to torpedoes. The next person's gone, oh, we've made the ship invisible, blah, 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 blah. Absolutely normal, complete nonsense.
I've got to be honest, Mike. I completely agree with you. I think it's definitely normal. I mean, the whole Montanak thing, you can go into it a little bit more, but
Maybe
and,
there'll be
and I
another
think there was
episode.
something that happened there, maybe like MK Ultra related. But in regards to the Philadelphia experiment, it's completely normal.
Completely unsubstantiated stories
It's
all around.
all horse.
It's normal.
Yeah.
There is no question. It is normal.
We've had a laugh talking about it though, haven't we?
It is. It's annoying because I remember like reading about this and like watching a thing on like when I was a kid, and it was like, wow, that's so interesting. And then like after like 20 minutes of looking into this, I was like, there's nothing here.
No.
There is nothing. It's an old tale. It's a myth.
Right, obviously,
Absolute myth.
obviously we want to cut this short. I still have pages of scientific notes about how it's impossible, but I'm not even going to go into
Yeah,
it.
it's not.
It's normal. It's normal. It's made up.
It's normal.
So on that note, after listening to us laugh at each other about a subject that none of us really thought was real at the beginning, we're going to end the show there. Thanks very much for listening. Sound off in the comments and
Please like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon.
cheers everyone.
Thank you.